The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for joining us today. Today we are talking about quantum biology. Now, I know that may sound like a really heavy subject and one that kind of makes your eyes go cross and your brain start buzzing, but it's not. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to break it down and share with you some new information from this rapidly growing field of study and help explain what scientists have found in relation to our human genetics as they relate to quantum energy that may literally change the course of healing in the future. Now, the classical approach to biology has served us well for centuries, explaining myriad processes that underpin the presence of living organisms. However, several biological phenomena have eluded clear understanding through this lens, hinting at the deeper quantum substrate, if you will. The field of quantum biology was birthed out of the goal to bridge this gap, applying the principles of quantum mechanics to biological questions. And the field of quantum biology is definitely exploratory in nature, but has already shed light on how quantum phenomena may drive some of the most crucial and complex processes of life. Two of these phenomena that we'll talk about today in this show are quantum tunneling and quantum coherence. First up is quantum tunneling. In the quantum realm, where we are measuring extremely small energy particles, these small particles behave in ways that defy classical intuition and definitely defy classical biology and physics. Quantum tunneling, which is a phenomena where particles overcome energy barriers, not by surpassing them, but by tunneling through them, has profound implications in biology. In the human body, for instance, this concept is explored in DNA mutation processes. Now, DNA mutations, essential for development and evolution of a species and variability of a species, may partly arise from protons tunneling across DNA double helixes, altering the genetic code of that species. Allow me to explain this in more simple terms. Imagine you are playing with a small ball, and in front of you is a hill. Now, normally, if you roll the ball up the hill, you would expect that if you don't give the ball enough energy, enough force to push it up and over the hill, it'll just simply roll back down to you. This is how things work in everyday classical physics. Now, quantum tunneling is like a magical twist, if you will, to this scenario. In the quantum world, particles like electrons act not just like balls, but also like waves. Imagine you have an electron wave going up a hill, similar to that little ball, but it doesn't seem to have enough energy to get up and over the hill. So instead of rolling back down the hill like the ball does in normal physics, it can sometimes just appear on the other side of the hill. It's as if the electron magically dug a tunnel through the hill and popped out the other side. In the quantum world, there's a chance that particles can pass through barriers that, according to the rules of classical physics, should be impossible for them to cross. Now, this isn't because they've gained extra energy somehow, but because of their wavy nature and the strange rules of probability that govern quantum mechanics. Now, quantum tunneling is vital in many processes, such as how the sun rises or how the sun shines, and even in some types of electronic devices that we use in everyday life. Now, as if that wasn't strange enough, let's move on to quantum coherence. Quantum coherence describes a scenario where particles are temporarily or spatially correlated in a wave-like manner. I know that's a mouthful. Let me break this down. This coherence is a testament to the unity and synchronicity in biological systems akin to an orchestra playing in harmony. Let me explain it even further. Imagine that each musician in an orchestra is a particle, and the music they create together as the behavior of the quantum system that they're in. In a normal non quantum system, it's like each musician is playing their instrument without paying much attention to the others. The result can be a bit of a jumbled, disharmonic mess. This is like particles bumping around and reacting without any kind of synchronization. It's how we typically understand particles behaving in the classical sense of things. Now, quantum coherence, on the other hand, is like all of the musicians playing in perfect harmony and rhythm. They are so in sync that the music they produce is powerful and unified, much more so than if they were each playing on their own. Now, in quantum terms, particles are acting together in a unified state. Their waves are in step with each other, moving up and down together. Have you ever seen those flocks of birds that seem to move in unison? That's what I'm talking about here. This coherence means that across the entire group of particles, there's a consistent and strong relationship that can lead to some amazing phenomenon like superconductivity. And I'll talk more about that here in just a minute, where electricity flows with no resistance, or the incredible efficiency of energy transfer in photosynthesis in plants. In essence, quantum coherence is when all the parts of a quantum system show a highly ordered pattern of interaction, much like an orchestra playing beautifully in tune. Now, this coherence is delicate and usually only happens under certain almost perfect conditions, like at very low temperatures or very fast timescales, which is why we don't see quantum effects in our everyday life very often. I will give you caution and pause with that last statement. That's with what we know right now. We can't measure, we can't see these interactions. I theorize and believe that these quantum dynamics, this quantum coherence is occurring all the time, regardless of regardless of laboratory conditions like very low temperatures or very fast timescales. I believe they're occurring right now all around us. Now, the cool thing is this: Einstein called this coherence spooky action at a distance. Another name for it, it was later called as quantum entanglement. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll call it quantum coherence, because this synchronous coherent state can occur between 2, 10, or 10 billion particles, each thousands or even millions of miles apart, or trillions of miles apart for that matter. If you don't believe me, try this on for size. When was the last time that you thought of a friend you haven't spoken to in maybe 4, 5, or 6 years? Then before you know it, that person reaches out to you via text, email, or a phone call. That is quantum coherence at its simplest, because you are forever quantumly entangled with that person and you are in a synchronous state with that person. So either A, they thought of you and then they popped into your mind, or B, they popped into your mind and at the end, at that same instant, you popped into their mind. Regardless, one of you reached out to the other to make contact because of that connection. Now, along similar lines, scientists have recently discovered that photons, which are just simply simple light particles, these photons act as packets of quantum electromagnetic energy. Better yet, they are quantum electromagnetic energy that carries messages across the space-time continuum. In this same study, when photon particles were received by the brain, this triggered a quantum coherent state in the heart and vice versa. In other words, let me break this down even more simply. Photon energy And the information that that photon energy carried literally bypassed the body's neurological systems and sent a message directly by photon energy to the heart. And the heart received that message, and the heart then communicated back to the brain with photon energy. And this is a study that was published earlier this year. It's an amazing study that no one has talked about, yet it's huge that this level of communication is going on within the human body. So if you're ever in doubt that we are quantum beings, that is proof that there are quantum mechanisms that researchers are starting to quantify and measure, such as this heart-brain communication that bypasses all neurochemical signals, all neurological electrical signals, and they communicate directly with each other. So the golden question is this: how does quantum energy affect your DNA? Quantum biology's involvement in human DNA is a captivating subject that delves into the fundamental processes of mutation and gene expression. You've heard me talk about gene expression over and over and over on this show because I use epigenetics as a baseline foundation for every client that I work with. That is the measure. The epigenetics is measuring your gene expression and what triggers, what switches are turned on and off related to that gene expression. In classical biology, DNA behaves in predictable ways. Genes are transcribed, they're translated, and they're occasionally mutated due to various chemical and physical influences within the internal environment and external environment. However, quantum biology introduces the possibility that quantum phenomena could play a role in all of these processes. One intriguing aspect of this is the hypothesis that quantum tunneling may influence DNA mutations. For example, quantum tunneling as it relates to mutations is the act of the DNA replication is crucial for the maintenance of genetic information, as we know. However, mutations do occur in almost every species and in almost every human. You have DNA mutations floating around in your body right now. Most people, a common one you may have heard of is a methylation deficiency. You may have a mutation in your methylation genes, therefore you don't methylate well, and you have a whole host of issues with detoxification, inflammation management, neurotransmitter production, energy production, mitochondrial health. The list goes on and on and on. There are over 400 metabolic processes responsible or handled by methylation. And if you have a mutation in those genes, you don't handle those processes well. However, mutations do occur, and some theories suggest that quantum tunneling may allow protons, remember those energy light packets of information, the quantum energy packets of information, quantum tunneling may allow these protons, protons and electrons, not photons, I apologize about that, within the DNA structure to move from one position to another without the need to overcome an energy barrier. Now, this tunneling could change the bonding structure within the DNA double helix molecule itself, leading to a mutation. That is just a theory right now, but that's a theory that they're working on proving because they're seeing things occur in mutation processes that they don't understand biologically. Therefore, the default is that it could be related to quantum tunneling. The next one is quantum effects and gene regulation, another potential application for quantum biology. The expression of genes, that is whether a gene is turned on or off. Remember, epigenetically, we're looking at good switches and seeing whether the good switch is turned off, and then we can coerce it to turn back on, or a bad switch that's turned on that we can coerce to turn off. The expression of genes looking at the direction that the switches are turned in that particular person is traditionally understood in the context of regulatory proteins and environmental factors. Now, quantum mechanics might influence the probability of different configurations in the DNA molecule, potentially affecting how genes are regulated and expressed. And I think this goes back to a study that I did that I talked about almost 2 years ago now on the podcast, where we discussed how mindfulness can actually alter for the positive genes related to inflammation. And this was a huge study, but no one really understood why that occurred. So, is it that mindfulness and meditation is actually working on a quantum level to change the dynamics of the expression of a gene? I think it's highly possible. And you're seeing the work of Joe Dispenza and his research team that are doing a lot of work with deep theta, deep gamma wave states. And they're seeing the same unlocking of these healing potentials where there's no biological reason why this should be happening. And I think the answer lies in the quantum mechanics or quantum biology realm. While the evidence for quantum biological effects in human DNA is still largely theoretical and requires further studies to support it, these concepts are intriguing because they could potentially lead to new understandings of genetic disorders and novel approaches to gene therapy. I'll even throw in there that it even may give pause for how ancestral energy is translated across time and space. The whole nother conversation for another day, and that gets in the pretty woo-woo category. But I think the woo in this particular case can be explained by quantum mechanics and quantum biology. However, earlier this year, a study was published in Nature Journal that discovered a newfound dynamic related to the power of our DNA. When compared to the energy, the energetic power of man-made superconductors, the superconductors that we have on planet Earth right now, a new breed of superconductor has been created using human DNA. And what they found is that the superconductors created with human DNA were, by and large, significantly more powerful than man-made electronic superconductors. And it caused the researchers to pull back and look at the human DNA in general and the energy that it produces. Now, you may not know this, but you have approximately 42.3 billion miles of DNA within your body right now. That's 42.3 billion miles of superconductors housed within your body. Now, the question I've got for you is this: what are you doing to take care of that 42.3 billion miles of DNA, that 42.3 billion miles of superconductor energy producing healing power that you have within your body? My answer to that is you owe it to yourself. You deserve to understand your genetic profile and get that checked. And I'm not talking about your off the shelf, direct to consumer grade 23andMe type genetic test. Those don't work. When you're looking at genetics, you need to look at them at a very deep level. And that's what we use. I have a customized proprietary genetic panel that I use. And one of the hallmark features of that is we look at all 5 phases of the methylation pathway. This is critical to understanding the foundation of every other epigenetic expression is understanding the 5 phases of the methylation pathway. Had a friend of mine reach out to me recently, wanted me to take a look at their genetics. And I looked at it and they only had 2 phases of the methylation pathway represented. And it was a huge genetic profile that they paid a lot of money for. And sadly, I had to tell this person, listen, I can't give you a read on these genetics because they didn't check everything that they should have checked. So that being said, if you're interested in understanding how you can start to support your epigenome, and maybe one of these days we'll even find the quantum energy connection as we're theorizing that is there already, reach out to me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook at Dr. Brian G. Brown, and I will be glad to walk you through that process. If you're one of the self-starter types and you want to kind of pursue this on your own, I've created a free boot camp. You can go to www.drbriangBrown.com/gene-hack/bootcamp. Register for the free boot camp there, and you can find out more information about maybe the areas of your genes that you need to focus on first, and then what you can do to work with me a little bit later. If you have any questions about that, also feel free to reach out to me. That's all I've got for today. The field of quantum biology as it relates to our genetics is exciting and it's growing. And I know these are new concepts that may seem a little bit mind-blowing, that, energy can just disappear from one place and reappear in another. But things like that happen, and we see them in laboratory testing with these energy particles, that one action over here affects an action over here, and we don't really understand how it happens other than these two particles are entangled in some way. And it goes back to that friend reaching out to you that you haven't talked to in 4, 5, or 6 years. We are quantumly entangled with a lot of things in this world. And as such, we are forever connected to them. And it explains a lot of things. Maybe it creates more questions, but to me, it explains a lot of things that happen that we just can't explain. Well, that's all I've got for today. If this deep dive into quantum biology enriched your day in any kind of way, please share this episode with somebody. Again, I can't say enough how grateful I am that you are here with us today. I don't take it for granted. I really don't. Most informed, most trusted, and most grateful you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, and stay inspired, and most of all, stay in the zone. This is Dr. Brian Brown signing off.